It's really bizarre because, you know, on some days you feel like you feel the history and you feel like you've been here forever. And then other days you feel like it hasn't been 14 years. You feel like it's flown by. I think it's the same with kids. It's like some days feel long and hard, and then other days feel like, oh my God, you were just a baby. And
Life.
yeah, time is an interesting concept.
Tick-tock.
So the episode is definitely classic Greys, and we pay homage to every character that's walked through the doors, all of the cast members that we love and miss. And they did it in a really cool way, so I think the audience is going to like it because it's funny and heartfelt, like every episode. But, well, not every episode is funny, but most episodes are heartfelt. But they did it in a really creative way. We you know, saluted all of the cast members, past and present, and yeah, it's fun for the writers to get to do the 300th, or special episodes for them are fun. They always come up with good themes. This show created a movement. I think it's much more than a television show, which is why it's easy to stay here 14 years, because it's much bigger than just a TV show. We have moved a culture. And
guess who's directing? She just directed an episode, and she was hip. I mean, she really, really nailed it. So
I should hope so after all this time.
I know, right? But see, I've been here all this time, and I forget what lights to look at. I'm just trying to remember my lines and listen to the other actor.
That's what happens when you're that handsome. It's debilitating.
Oh, my tooth hurts. That's too sweet.
It happens quite frequently, not to sound arrogant, but more than you think, of people being able to know, you know, specifically mothers with their children, you know, getting sort of brushed away at the pediatrician's office, like it's a fever, it's a cold, it's not a big deal. And I have so many letters and have heard so many stories about mothers who said, I know this is not a cold, I know this is something more. And they persisted and they pushed and they went and got other opinions, and they found out that their children had, you know, life-threatening illnesses that they could catch in time because of an episode of Grey's Anatomy.
And also the audience gets inspired to go into medicine. We've
Yes.
been on so long, there were young people that now are in medicine for college, and it's to know that we've had an effect on their lives and inspired them to become medical, which is so important because we all have to deal with life and death, correct? Or illness. That keeps us rolling.
Being directed by Denzel Washington was certainly a highlight. I've said it 100 times. For him to walk these halls was pretty awe-inspiring for all of us. I mean, he's basically the greatest to ever do it, right? So one of the greatest to ever do it. I mean, you know, De Niro, Pacino, Denzel, there's only a couple at that level.
Yeah, he's a movie icon.
And so, you know, that was pretty, I would say, yeah, and we get to work with Debbie Allen every day.
She's got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, Debbie does.
Does she?
I've walked past it quite a few times. It's a big deal.
You know, and she too is an icon, and is just this really, really incredible force that I words can't even describe her. You really have to experience. Debbie is an experience, you know, and what she's been through in this industry, and how she's catapulted herself and her life, and she still finds the time to give back, and she's the most positive person I know. And so I get touched on a daily basis by basking in her glow.
Big picture-wise, I love the historical significance of that. As, you know, an actor pounding the pavement in New York, or, you know, going back and forth to LA, you know, basically you just want a job, right? Or you want a pilot. So, or, you know, let it go a season or two. 14 seasons is something that you can't even imagine. So each season that goes by, I really enjoy the history that this is setting up, and all of the other actors that watch and say, you know, I think that's the kind of thing that I want to do. Because I remember watching actresses like Esapatha Murkison doing Law and Order for all those years, but then doing Broadway at the same time. And I'm like, okay, one thing helps the other thing, and that's a career. So I think that's what I enjoy the most about, you know, what's happening personally anyway. That's really what this 300th episode is about, honoring the show, honoring the history of the show. And as always, we love to honor our fans. And so there'll be some throwback things in there that I can't tell you anything about. I don't know, may have something to do with some music. Can't tell you anything about that either. But you know, it's we historically have always carried the past with us, season after season. We don't ever like close the door on whatever has happened before. We appreciate everything that came before is what got us to where we are today, and it's the same thing that our characters are experiencing. The thing that I get the biggest kick out of about having this resurgence in a way of the show. We've always kind of ridden waves. We rode the DVD wave and then the DVR wave and then the cable wave, and so now we're into the social media wave. So what I enjoy is that folks that have come to the show later, maybe been here 6 years or 5 years, 7 years, get to feel like rock stars sometimes because the kids, they come up to us like, we just did those episodes the day before yesterday, and it was a while ago. So I enjoy seeing their faces and that they get a chance to have the fun that we got to have in season 2 and season 3 and season 4 back when we were rock stars. So it's very fun. Grey's Anatomy has given me personally the opportunity to have a door opened into directing for series television. I never thought that was possible. I never even imagined it, maybe for theater, but not for television. And now I'm 17 episodes in now of having directed for Grey's, and I was given the opportunity to direct an episode about cyclic vomiting syndrome, which is something that my oldest daughter suffers from, and we were able to cater an episode to putting that word, putting that name out into the world so that people could hear it and people could say, oh my goodness, that's me. And still today, we get either calls or emails or somebody somewhere has rediscovered the episode and said, that's what's going on with my kid. So I really appreciate that. And then my fan out moment was when Natalie Cole did an episode, and nobody told me that she was the one that had been hired. And I was brought into the hair and makeup trailer because I was just a huge Natalie Cole fan. And I walk in, and she's sitting there in the hair chair, and I just started crying. I had no English language whatsoever. I probably made an absolute fool of myself. I think she looked at me like I was crazy, but I just completely fanned out because I was not expecting Natalie Cole to be sitting in the makeup chair. I had a nurse actually at my doctor's office come up to me, and she said, I've always wanted to say something to you, Ms. Wilson, and didn't quite know how to do it, but I'm just going to bravely say I was stuck for a minute. I didn't quite know what it was that I wanted to do with my life. I was sitting on the couch and I was watching Grey's, and I saw your face and I saw your image, and I said, what am I doing sitting on this couch? And she got up and she took herself to nursing school, and now she was vying for head nurse basically at the clinic. And I take that with such honor, because if that's what we're putting out there, if people are saying, if people are turning inwards at all and getting any kind of inspiration for what they're seeing on a television show, then that's a great contribution from television, and we appreciate being a part of that movement.
Today we're celebrating the 300th episode of Grey's Anatomy. It doesn't seem like it's been that long, but it's a pretty momentous occasion here. We'll have a little cake cutting ceremony this afternoon, some lunch with cast and crew, and celebrate a milestone. Mm-hmm. I think it's a testimony actually to the staying power of the storytelling that the fans over these past 14 seasons have wanted to take this journey with these characters and these storylines and follow it through from the beginning back in '05 to where we are now, and to Shonda Rhimes and her brilliant foresight and kind of wanting to change the landscape. I don't know if that was her intention, but she wound up doing that. The landscape of how we view TV in terms of diversity and gender equality. I think she's been at the forefront of ushering that new kind of that paradigm in terms of how we watch television now. It'll be kind of a look back and an homage to the past and to those the characters who came through at the beginning and who were such a vital part of making the show what it was. And I don't think it would have been what it was had it not been for this array of wonderful characters and the storylines that were attached to them and the way that they were able to express those and make it clear and in a way that propelled us to where we are now. Fans and viewers still want to be told a story. They want to see a beginning, a middle, and an end. They want to take a journey with a character. We've been able to show these people as they travel the arc of their lives and they navigate how it gets tricky and a little murky. We've seen them when they have been ugly, and we've seen them be heroic. But all along they've told a story of how people deal in circumstances in a high-pressure environment such as that of a large metropolitan hospital where life and death hangs in the balance every week. But also it juxtaposes the lives of these people, and they kind of almost parallel in a sense. And I think that's been the fascination with these audiences for 14 seasons. They want to see how that plays out. They want to take that journey and see what's on the other side of that. I think that's what's been appealing. And it has been for all great shows in the past that have had longevity, is the fact that audiences really have identified with those stories and those characters, and they want to take that ride with them. That's the one thing that I think has been most gratifying for me is I can't count how often I run into a young person who said, you know, I've decided to go into medicine because of your show, or whether it be male or female, and it seems to happen all the time, that we've become an inspiration for them. And at our very core, that we're a medical show. You see these people day in and day out plying their trade, which is saving lives and trying to give a better quality of life. And with that, you see who they are inside, these doctors. And yeah, it's resonated quite effectively with a lot of folks over the years, a lot of young people who said, this is the profession I want to go into, and have become doctors during the run of our show, you know, from when we, you know, our first, second season, and now, you know, they come back and say, I'm now practicing, and it was because of your show. So that's been pretty gratifying.
Today is a very special day because it is the first day of shooting our 300th episode of the show, and which is unbelievable and amazing, and none of us, I don't think, thought we'd get here. I remember my character started on the show around about the time of the 100th episode celebration, so I was here for that celebration, and it feels like yesterday, like time has just flown. So that's why we're here, to celebrate the fact that we're at 300 episodes and still going strong, and it's a very, very special day. It's a really great episode, the 300th episode, because Krista's written a script that's kind of has this very nostalgic feeling, and in this really smart, clever ways that only Krista and Shonda can do. The thing about Grey's, it's really quite an intangible thing. I think that's why it's such a special show, because it really is the mixture of drama and comedy and entertainment with quite serious subjects sometimes, and really adult situations mixed with fun and irreverence, and I think quite inspirational characters. All of these characters and these surgeons that we follow each week all have struggled in their personal lives and their professional lives, and continue to fight the good fight and to try and get better as a person, as a surgeon, and to, you know, fulfill their own potential. I think there's just so many universal themes about that people connect to. You know, people really connect to the fact that none of us are perfect. You know, but we all do our best, and we're all trying to improve and get better each day and learn something each day. And I think that is the core lesson. And also, it's a great ride, and you become invested with these characters. But I think thematically, that's the thing that I feel is the most inspirational thing about the show, is that it's about, the show is about, you know, struggling on and getting through the tough moments and becoming a better person for it. I've met many people in the last years who have graduated and are now practicing medicine, and they've said specifically because they watched our show, which is very flattering and kind of humbling, because none of us are doctors and we can't save a life, really, you know, we do on TV. But to think that kind of nudged somebody's life towards that path of service, and it really is a service. You know, that you're giving yourself to the service of the wellness of other people. It's kind of amazing, and it's quite humbling when you meet people. And I've met many people that tell me stories like that, it's cool. I've been through a lot in my life, my personal life, in the past few years, and this shows, it's like my family now. You know, it really is like my family. I'm from Scotland, as you can probably hear in my accent. But this has become my family in this really quite meaningful way. And it's kept me alive, you know, kind of spiritually in a sense, because there's such good energy here, and I've made some lifelong friends here. You know, we've done so much. I mean, it's hard to remember sometimes how much we've done. And I just feel really honored that I get to be part of it, and grateful and thankful. And that's not me sort of painting on a fake smile. I mean it, you know, like I realize how lucky I am and how fortunate I've been to be involved in this sort of show. You know, some of the things that we've done, and I got to start directing. You know, I've become a director because of this show, and because Shonda had faith in me, and Rob Corn had faith in me, and Debbie Allen had faith in me, and all kind of, you know, cheered me on and encouraged me, and that would never have happened. It may have happened, but, you know, for those things, I'm really blown away, honestly, at what this show has done for me in my life, and where I feel my potential's going. And I'll be forever grateful for that, you know, and long may it continue.
There's a little dash of nostalgia where something from the past comes into the present, but in sort of a sideways way. So it's sort of discreet, and maybe you catch it at first and maybe you don't. And then definitely our characters catch it. And then it becomes sort of this, like a nod to where we've been and where we are and where we're going to. And so I think that's, I think it'll be very exciting for people who have been with the show from the very beginning. 9 years ago, when I was cast on the show, I didn't know what my character was going to do or be, or how their history was, or who they were. And it got revealed about after 3 episodes that I was here that Arizona was gay. And I was like, all right, here we go. What's this going to be like? And all of a sudden, I would go into interviews and people were like, do you know that this is the first series regular gay character on network television? That's kind of amazing, but okay, all right. You keep going and you keep going. And then I think every year that passed, I would start to get letters from people who that meant something to. And now all of a sudden, instead of just, you know, sort of trying to like, stay in my lane and be as good of an actress as I possibly could, I realized that the storylines and what we were doing and the story we were telling was actually sort of meaning something to people in a personal way. And I think you hope for that as a storyteller, whatever part of storytelling you're a part of, whether you're a director or a writer. But I don't know that you actually ever get to gain access to knowing that it's affected someone. And no, watch, I'll cry. I know that it has. And I could not be more proud of that. I couldn't have expected that. I didn't expect it. I couldn't have hoped for it. But I feel very, again, privileged to be part of a storyline that has meant something to people in a way that has been reported as positive, and part of something that ushers in a kinder and more accepting part of what we've always known as life. You know, that there there's all sorts of people. The stories that are told, whether they are about a mother, a brother, a father, a sister, a husband, a wife, it just doesn't matter. They're all very sort of baseline human and very resonant for anyone and everyone, and sort of entertaining on that level. And we have incredibly heartbreaking storylines, and then we have incredibly absurd storylines, and then we have very funny and very sad, and it's sort of all over the place. And so I think that it mostly feels like this incredible hyper-real environment that's been created, just for you, even though obviously it's for everyone. We keep it fresh by showing up every day, not knowing exactly what's going to happen. I mean, I think that, when you're first when a show is first being created, and you saw in the first couple of years of the show where, actors were new to parts and they were creating those parts and they were finding out little pieces of information as they go, because it's a serialized show. It's the way that we tell stories is in episodes, and you don't know what's happened. You don't know what's happened in the future until it starts to happen, which creates this incredible zigzag of a road. But so often as an actor, you don't know what's going to happen. And then you sort of get very comfortable in knowing who you are. And so I've been playing Arizona Robbins for 9 years, and I feel very comfortable in knowing who she is. And so I can show up at work and sort of feel like there's a tremendous gift and privilege to having played something for so long, because you feel like almost anything you do probably is what she would do. And you can get a little more free, and you can get a little more impulsive, and yet, obviously you're tethered to a script, because we all show up and your lines and everything else, but there's a freedom, I think, in the past couple of years to that, and I think that that's what keeps it fresh. You know what your lines are, but you don't know what else is going to happen, and you don't know what's going to happen to your character in 2 episodes, 3 episodes, 5 episodes, 10 episodes, 300 episodes, and so that's exciting, and it keeps you on your toes. I had a 1-year-old little boy. And I was so excited. I'd spent the year at home with him, and I was super excited to get back to work. And also because I knew it was an ensemble, and because I knew I was a guest star, I was very hopeful that it would be the kind of schedule that would allow me to stay completely a mom, but also go out and do this thing that I loved, and work and earn and all that good stuff. And then I came here, and then I ended up getting cast as a series regular, and that 1-year-old is now 10. And he has 3 sisters. So that's a lot, right? That's a lot of life. And you don't know where it's going to go, but you just go. And I think that when you have the kind of team that we do, even through all the different iterations of cast and producers and writers and everything else, you're a part of something really good. And so you trust it, even when sometimes you do crazy things. And I feel that I have done crazy things.
I mean, it's just such a gift. It completely transformed my life. I've had the opportunity to have 2 children while being on this show with this incredible community, telling stories that I really care about telling, with the queen of television, Shonda Rhimes herself. In terms of life, work, blessing, this is kind of the pinnacle of what one could ever ask for. So pretty grateful. It's pretty amazing that we have continued on for so long. What I think is the most fascinating part of this whole story is learning about the fact that these 13-year-olds who literally weren't alive when our show first came out are just discovering it now on Netflix. And we have this whole new generation of viewership that are obsessed and have become super fans and are super connected to these characters and committed to them. So it's neat to see that our show has kind of stood the test of time, and that it just continues to bring more and more and more people into its viewership. We're telling stories that people can relate to. We're telling stories about what it is to be a sister and a friend. And I mean, this show was really built on the Christina Meredith friendship, and that's a really neat and unique element to this show. everybody has a best friend, you know? We have a lot of people who are single who watch the show, but they all know what it means to be in a committed friendship, right? So we tell the intricacies of what the friendship ebb and flow looks like, but we're also dealing in life and death situations, which gets the heart racing and pumping and makes people excited, and they want to know what's going to happen with the guest stars that come on, and people want to cry, and so we give them all the feels so people keep tuning in so that they can feel all the feelings in a space that's safe. It encompasses the full life experience, and because we represent everybody from every different background, anybody who's watching can find themselves in one of these characters. So they want to keep seeing, like, that's the person that I relate to. How are they dealing with this issue? Maybe I could deal with this issue in this way, or, you know, it's neat. When I was pregnant with my second child, my character was also pregnant with the baby that I lost on the show. So it was a very kind of full and emotional experience, and my baby actually was born early, the day after we shot the labor and delivery and death scene, and then she had to be in the NICU for a couple of weeks. And what was unbelievable, I mean, it was scary and a big emotional experience, but I had this incredible experience with another mother in the NICU. I had just played a scene literally 3 days before where in the midst of April's pain, she gets to comfort a woman who just lost her husband. And I had this whole monologue that I give to her about how she's brave and that she can get through this and that God will walk with her through it. And I found myself in the situation in the NICU where there was another mom and she had just discovered that her baby had a hole in his heart. And she was just shaking uncontrollably, and I went up to, I'm gonna cry. I went up to her and I wrapped my arms around her and I literally found the words to speak to her. They came directly out of the lines I had just spoken, like 4 days before. And there I am, also suffering because my baby is also in the NICU, and I had this incredible, I had language to pull from to actually meet her in that moment of need, and that had been given to me through the writing of the show. What I think has been the most impactful is that we are now seeing like a surge of women who are stepping into the role of surgeon, who are watching the show and going, that's what I want to do with my life. I want to be a badass surgeon. I want to work my ass off. I want to save lives. And it's because I have a sea of characters to choose from that I want to emulate in some way, or that I see the humanity in, and that I'm inspired by. And that for me is the most exciting part, is seeing women rise up and take the reins in the workforce and recognize their unbelievable potential that has maybe been untapped before the moment that they get to see themselves up on screen doing something like that. So that's a real privilege.
It's a privilege. It's an incredible honor to be on the show, to be part of something that has been such a pioneering force in television casting and storytelling and dramedy and writing. So that's something I'm really grateful for, and I've learned a tremendous amount and continue to. So I'm really proud to be part of the team. It's a unique opportunity to be on a show that has so many generations of sincere, committed fans, right? You've got parents who were watching the show who had kids in season 1, and they're now watching the same show with those kids. That's pretty uncommon. You also have, with Netflix and streaming, so we get more new viewers, new people to the show that are binge watching than we have existing viewers. It kind of keeps, it's this cycle. So you've got 12-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 25, 35, 45, all the way up, experiencing it differently, but most importantly, experiencing it, which means we have, that's a huge demographic block that we have in terms of people who are really tied and compelled by the show. That's a fan base that is huge and also international, right? We're in, I think, 146 territories or something. So any part of the world that I've gone to, every age, shape, and size are serious fans of the show. That's a pretty rare thing. So we're lucky and we learn a lot, and that also means we have a lot of people to serve and listen to, and they're certainly present online. They tell us what they hate and what they love. People pursue attainable goals. You know, people pursue goals in life and get ambitions and seeds planted in their head of what they could possibly do because they see somebody that they can relate to doing it. That could be, you know, in their actual lived experience. It could be on television or in film. And for us to have so many great female leads, so many great, you know, doctors, surgeons, people in, you know, that have agency in their own lives of color, of different sexual orientations, different physical abilities, all on a huge show, particularly in a climate that has always said none of those things are possible because they're not marketable and the world at large won't have an appetite for them. And Shonda Rhimes has been proving them wrong since day one. So with tremendous success, that means a lot to people, and it means a lot to people's real lives, you know, and people see somebody that looks like them or they can relate to, and command of their own lives and being not defined by their color or orientation or religion, but just being themselves and pursuing their dreams. That makes a big difference. I can certainly relate to that, and I'm proud of that. I'm really proud of Shonda for her ability to see past all that and not have us not create a world where everybody has to demonstrate their difference. They can just be themselves, and the rest, you know, if we're normal and act cool and just normal about it, you can see how we look and you realize we're not the boogeyman. It's not crazy. It's not far-fetched to have a black chief of surgery or a lesbian doctor taking care of a Muslim patients. You know, this is real life, and this is real America, and we need to certainly take that thinking back. One of the things I really like, which we find creative ways to do consistently every season, is to play with expectations and bias when it comes to making characters vulnerable, putting their lives or their children's lives in the hands of somebody they've considered other or the opposition. I think that we've had several examples of story where a caretaker has come in and not wanted a certain doctor to take care of them, or had expectations about a way of life that are just outdated. And what often happens, and I think we talked about this earlier, what often happens is through lived experience, it kind of evaporates your prejudice. Because if you thought every black person or lesbian or whatever is a certain way, and your actual lived experience proves that wrong in this experience, then that everything else dissipates. It's clearly not true. All Muslims are not like this. You're looking at two that are different. I'm really proud of, you know, we're still breaking that ground this year. I look forward to us we have a doctor in hijab this season. We have a young Indian resident, things that are, you know, long overdue and need to be on television and are a reflection of reality. So I think the casting choices consistently really make me really proud to be here.
Today we have a cake cutting on our set and a big celebration with all of the cast and crew. I feel like we did this for our 200th episode too. So this is my second cake cutting, which feels like a big deal to be part of both. But that's what we're doing today. We're celebrating the amazing unicorn that is Grey's Anatomy in our 300 episodes. I don't expect to ever be part of a show that's hitting 300 episodes ever again. I love calling Grey's a unicorn because I feel like it is so rare that you ever get on a show like this. It's the first show for ABC that actually has reached 300 episodes. So it feels amazing. It feels like a huge accomplishment for the cast, the crew, everyone, and so many people have been here since day one. So it just feels like a big celebration. I don't think I'll ever be part of something that reaches 300 again. Maybe, hopefully, but, you know, I don't expect to. I think one of the best things about the 300th episode is that it's going to evoke a lot of nostalgia. Let's say there's lots of familiar faces. There's a huge trauma that happens at the hospital. So there's lots of drama as per usual, but there's also some great funny moments. I think for the fans, there's also little Easter eggs that they can find in the episode too. So it's going to be really fun. And like I said, I think there's going to be a little bit of nostalgia there for everyone watching. I think the best thing about Grey's Anatomy is that we're constantly evolving. As a cast, we love to keep things fresh. And I think that our storylines are always relevant for what's going on in the moment. And I think that people can relate, to just very basic life experiences like heartbreak and loss. And those are things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis here on set. And so I think that no matter what age, you also can relate to that. And also for us, we have this brand new set of fans that are watching the show, and they would have been, like 5 years old when it came out, and now they're all caught up, and they're our new generation of fans, and they're so passionate. So it's great because I feel like we have such a huge age range of fans for the show, and I think that's what's unusual about Grey's. One of the most amazing things about being on the show actually is that we get approached by a lot of young girls who say, and women who say that they were inspired to become doctors and nurses from the show. So that's something that feels amazing to be part of, that maybe your storyline or your character, inspired something else. And then for me especially, I'm playing a character that has gone through domestic violence. And so having people reach out to me on Twitter and say that they can relate to the storyline and the character, and that it's sort of helping them cathartically with their own experience and past, like that's something that you don't necessarily expect as an actress. And it's an honor to receive those messages and to meet those people.
We are celebrating the 300th episode of this incredible show. Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, I think the meaning of it keeps changing as the impact of the show keeps evolving and changing. It's been such a packed time in our culture this last, 13, 14-year period. And our show has kind of been witness to the ups and downs and radical changes. And so, being a part of that witness has been profound. One of the strengths of the show is that we have really, really dynamic, multifaceted characters. And we emphasize the common humanness of all people in the show. And there's kind of like very diverse characters and priorities and jobs and walks of life. But at the core, we're all, these flawed humans who are struggling to find love and acceptance and connection. And so I think that the major themes, of course, touch everybody, regardless of country or age. It's really nice that at this point we've been on for long enough that you have kind of the first generation of viewers watching with their like nieces and nephews and kids. It's wild. It's so much of our lives now. I mean, the percentage of our adult lives that have been spent in the halls of Seattle Grace / Grey-Sloan Memorial, it increases every year. And so it's hard to tease out, moments of your life not having to do with the show and moments of your life having to do with the show, because the show really has become, for so many of us, a huge part of our lives. I mean, our social network and our professional world. I mean, we're kind of like the doctors at, Grey-Sloan Memorial. Like, we hang out here a lot. I've heard that the number of female surgeons has skyrocketed since Grey's Anatomy began. And I think we get to pat ourselves on the back a little bit for that little factoid.
What it means to me to be on Grey's, a show with such a storied television history, it comes at me in waves from time to time. Sometimes I don't realize. Sometimes you see it in the eyes of a guest star who's like completely awed seeing the walls of the hospital, because they've been watching the show forever, and you're like, oh yeah. this show's been on and people have been with us for such a long time. And sometimes it's in the eyes of my castmates, you know, who have been holding it down for 14 seasons and doing the work of telling the stories to bring people back. And then, you know, sometimes it's in the really great storylines that I get that I'm like, oh my God, this is why I'm so grateful for this job. This is the kind of, this is how I want to reach people. This is how I want to teach people. This is how I want to use my skills and my talent and my art to do the good work. And so yeah, that's what it means. It means a lot of things. It's like an homage to the whole show. It calls on the themes and the imagery of all 14 seasons of the show. There's references to the characters who are still on the show, to their pasts in a way that's really touching. There's a lot to this show. I think the show has all of the right stuff to keep the audience coming back. It's funny. For one thing, you know, and it's funny in the context of situations that feel close to people's real lives and they can really, really relate to. The characters are so rich and well drawn, and they reflect a range of human experiences that our audience can relate to. And even if they can't relate to, it's portrayed in a way that they can understand where these characters are coming from. And I think that people like to have their empathy triggered, and people like to learn, and people like the music on the show, and people, you know, there's some good-looking people. It's got all the right stuff. So we've somehow Shonda managed to cook up this thing with all of the right ingredients, and we're trying to keep it going. I just think it speaks volumes about the power of art, you know, and how it really can be used as a tool to teach and heal and nurture people. And if what we're doing is nurturing people into service professions, then, you know, I'm sure it's not the only thing that's pushing them along in that direction, but if we're the thing that tips them over the edge and creates a scientist who's going to find a cure for something, or a doctor who finds a new solution, then it's like, that's why we do this. You know, that's what we have a really, really great time, but we're aware of the impact that we have, and it's a thrill. I feel very proud of that and very humbled by the actual doctors and not just the pretend doctors who do the work out there. Maybe because it's still relatively fresh, but I absolutely loved working with LaTanya Richardson Jackson in the Maggie's Mom storyline. She was so much fun to be around, so funny, so like just the best storyteller, has seen it all, and is so loving. And that really came through as Maggie's mom, you know, just a great, big-hearted, kind, hilarious, warm woman. I loved those moments.
We are celebrating 300 episodes of Grey's Anatomy, a little bit of TV history, because that don't happen. I mean, you know, if you are lucky enough to win the lottery and land on a series, you wish, pray, hope for like 100 episodes is the equivalent of winning the lottery. You know, 300 is like planning on being a billionaire. You just can't do that. Like, that's not even something you think about. It's a great show. Like, I remember when my wife first showed me the show, long before I was ever on it, I was like, I need to be on that show. And there's only a handful of shows that you actually have that sensation about, because like the writing is so strong, the actors are so strong, and I wanted to be on it. So like good television that lasts a long time, and then the other part is that it's television that's changed the way television looks. I mean, television. You know, this show made the rest of television start to change up how they do things to look more like America. TV started to change up how they cast shows because of this show. And then you start having more diversity and inclusivity, and next thing you know, people started seeing themselves on TV a lot more. People, my wife's East Indian. She sees herself on TV more now than she ever did when she was a little girl. I didn't see that many people that looked like me on TV. Certainly not playing doctors when I was a kid. So I'm incredibly thankful to Shonda and for showing people the light. I think the reason why it resonates so much is because it's so human. I mean, it really is. Some shows, sometimes when it's a drama, they lose the humor. And sometimes when it's comedy, they lose the drama. And the reality is real life has all of that stuff mixed into it, and nobody does it like Shonda does. Nobody does it like this show does, where they mix them together, and so they can go even deeper into the drama because they made you laugh a second ago. The show will turn around and laugh at itself. There's a moment, I think it was Sandra during the plane crash. I remember crying out loud, laughing at her talking about all the horrible things that has happened to her in the course of her life. In Meredith Grey, Ellen's had to play that a few times where she's like, what is wrong with me that all these things happen to me? And it's funny when we watch it on TV because, we've got 14 years of people coming up with the craziest things they can imagine. But we all feel like that. We all have those moments in life where you're like, why does all this crazy junk happen to me? Why are all my friends that I love so crazy? I think those things resonate. The relationships between people, both the friendships and the loving relationships, I think people see either the ones they have in their life or the ones they wish they had in their life. We've had tremendous number of people come to us. I've had people tell me that they went to nursing school because of the show. They went to become a doctor because of the show. I've had people tell me that they were doctors and they started watching the show, fell in love with it. And I was like, I know, you're going to tell us some of the things that we might do wrong. They said, I love it. They said, I love it. They said, because we're not capturing the facts of, surgeries take like 5 hours and it's a 44-minute program with commercials out, so it's like, they know that they're capturing this. What the doctor told me that time was, they said, you capture how it feels to be a doctor when you save a life or when you lose somebody, how hard that hits you. And that meant something to me. So those kind of conversations, when you get people who go into the field because of what the show did or are in the field and it resonates with them, that's a cool thing. None of my kids were born when this show started, and they're older now, and I got a teenager, and I've got some, younger kids. And when this show is possibly the first thing besides a tweener movie that I did that they liked when they were 4. This is the first time that I was cool. That a TV show I was doing actually meant something because so many of their friends watch it and that sort of thing. And so they try and play it off like, that's my dad, but their friends are like, your dad's on Grey's Anatomy? And they're like, yeah, and I see the look in their eyes where they're like, there's a little moment of pride, but then they got to play it off because, dad's not cool, so they can't really go into it. But that was a cool moment where, like, when I saw my kids getting a little bit of street cred because their dad was on Grey's Anatomy, that felt all right.
I feel like I can't really take any credit at all. I'm the newcomer, this is my 3rd season, full season, and so I get to be, I'm really excited to be included in this 300 milestone that, we still have a lot of original actors from the pilot, as you know, and so it's really moving to see their journey and to sort of have witnessed their journey, even just in my short stay here. Arriving to this point and going back and seeing the old episodes and how far they've come, not just the actors, but the writers, the producers, and Shonda. So it was a very emotional table read that we had this week, reading the episode, because it made everyone very aware of the time that's passed and how much has been accomplished by everybody since. For the people who've been watching from the beginning, I can relate to from shows that I've watched as well, that when there's really good writing and very strong attention to character development, you really get attached to these characters and what happens to them and whether they live or die, and they're invested. These fans are invested, and so it's very hard to look away from sort of the unfolding of these people's lives who they've spent so much time with. I feel like these people, when you've been watching them for 13 years in a row. Another reason I think, we have a very strong, independent female cast of badass women, and I think that's really encouraging to young women today who are watching this show, to see so many independent, really successful women who are saving lives, and I think that's inspiring. I get, messages and texts and Instagram messages of young people saying, this show made me want to become a doctor. I'm in med school. I'm pursuing because of something you said or because of something one of the other characters said or did or an episode that was, made me want to do this specialty. And it's so amazing that someone who's not a doctor at all can inspire someone to do that. And so, very cool. Last year, I got to be directed by Denzel Washington, which is easily a career milestone for me. It's incredible. I never thought that Grey's Anatomy was the job that was going to get me to work with Denzel Washington. You know what I mean? As he's so centered around film and cinema, not television. So that was really cool. And I got to, Jason George and I got to go into an open heart surgery my first year to observe surgeons, and I learned a lot. It was an amazing experience. I got to witness something that very few people get to unless you're a surgeon. So that was, I felt really privileged to have that access to really witness that and to have an even deeper respect for these surgeons and what they do. My first surgery was a disaster, and Linda Klein, our medical producer, she was just yelling at me and, oh, you're holding this wrong, you're doing that wrong. And so, in the moment I was like freaking out, but later it just became a story we would laugh about. But yeah, my first surgery, it was cool to just actually be in the OR with the other doctors, and it was a very real moment. I was like, oh my God, I'm really here, I'm really doing this, you know what I mean? And yeah, we work with, it's a dramatic show, but we have so many funny people on this show. We laugh so much in between takes, and and we really relish in the comedy stuff when we can be funny and make people laugh, because there's so many funny souls around here. So I love those moments we get to play and have fun.
It's kind of amazing to me, because I really thought we were going to do maybe 13 episodes and then never see it again. And we were so passionate about it, and we loved it so much.
No, we really, really did. And I remember actually right before the show aired, we were still editing. And nobody really had seen it. We'd gotten virtually no feedback. We'd just finally sort of gotten, I think, an air date.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting and editing. It was probably like 2 a.m. It was the two of us sitting there. And we looked at each other and sort of said, what do you think's going to happen? And you said, I really like the show. And I said, well, I really like the show. And if nobody watches it, I can put VHS tapes in the back of my car and give them out to people.
Yeah.
We debuted the show when we had VHS tapes, and there was no social media.
There was no social media, no internet.
We got fan mail through the mail.
Like actual mail.
Like on paper with writing. It
Stamps.
Was stamps.
Yeah.
So I think it's amazing, first of all, because such a long amount of time has gone by. And I have to say personally, I can clock years by what season of Grey's Anatomy it was. Major events in my life, the people who love me are kind of offended because they, well, that was the year of the shooter. And that was the season that Meredith and Derek sort of got married. And that
Post-it note year, yeah.
It sort of has, I think, been representative of a gigantic portion of both of our adult lives.
It's true, and yet I woke up this morning and thought, 300? Like, it feels like yesterday.
It really does.
Yeah. It feels a little bit like old Grey's in that it's fun and it's funny and it's refreshing, and yet it still has that heart that Grey's has. Don't you think?
Yeah, and I think it's actually, it's a weird thing to say, but it's an amazing representative episode of Grey's Anatomy. It's Grey's Anatomy at its best in a lot of different ways. And that's the thing which I think I'm super proud of it as a 300th episode, because I think it embraces all these different aspects of what Grey's is, both past, present, and also future.
Yeah, sometimes you wonder, can we be fresh and new at 300 episodes? And I think what's great is that we keep discovering, yeah, we can.
What I think is really moving is so many different people from so many different walks of life and cultures all respond universally to the themes and the emotions and the characters and the situations in the show. And it's great to see, in a way, how much we all have in common. And I think that's one of the largest things I'm really grateful for, is that somehow or another, this is a show that has managed to touch so many people in so many different walks of life. And it gives everybody this sort of common point of communication, which is really a privilege and really fun to watch.
It's magical to me that something that started inside my head that I feel is very personal to me most of the time resonates with the woman who told me that she watches it in India with her grandmother and her daughter. That's amazing. And here, we hear fathers say they watch it with their daughters because that's the way they bond. We hear women go to medical school because they wanted to be like Meredith and Christina. Those things feel profound to me, and I find that bigger than us. It doesn't really, it's more about the impact of the show and the way the actors portray the characters and what that means in the zeitgeist. I think that happened later than other people might think. I know a lot of people felt like they thought it happened in season 2 for them. It happened around season 6. I was like, oh, I think we might keep going. That was really the first time I thought, wow, I don't have to worry about like keeping the lights on in my house. I was that person.
I think that's really accurate. And also, we never left work. So also, you have to kind of remember that I think it was a bigger deal before either of us clocked it, but because we were always in the office.
We missed the outside world.
We missed the outside world. So every once in a while, there'd be a strange encounter in an airport or something where I'd be wearing a T-shirt, not realizing I was an idiot to be wearing a T-shirt with my show on it. And someone would stop and go, oh my God. And I think that's the closest we came to.
Yeah, I'd be in the grocery store and I'd hear somebody a couple of aisles over just quoting a line as part of their just normal conversation. And I'd think, well, that's odd. And that was pretty much it. Maybe in season 11 or 12, when I started going to the grocery store and 12-year-olds would come up to me and sort of follow me around. And I was like, what's happening? Our fans had given birth to fans. And that was insane. That's when I really thought, well, we got something here. The idea that our show is going to be something that grew to make young women want to be doctors, or people of color see themselves in a different light, see themselves represented on television, or somebody be able to diagnose themselves, or just the power of realizing you're not alone because you see your disease on television. I don't think any of that occurred to me when we started. I really was just trying to tell stories about characters and women as I knew them. And the discovery that people were going to start to go to medical school. And I think the first time I heard about this was young women were telling me that they would stay up at the end of your medical school year, you get picked to go to a residency. And they started having these parties where they would stay up all night watching Grey's Anatomy while they waited for the residency information to come in. Like that was their wait to discover where they were going to go. And I thought, that's amazing. And then somebody said, well, it's part of the reason why I went to medical school. Grey's Anatomy was so inspiring. And I thought the idea that a character like Christina and a character like Meredith, who were shown just loving their jobs and finding science exciting and saving lives exciting, made somebody want to do that themselves, that's powerful. And it didn't feel like it was powerful because I was writing it or we were doing it. It just felt like a powerful thing to know was possible just in terms of what media can do.
Today we started shooting the 300th episode of Grey's Anatomy, the most highly rated, most watched drama on ABC in its history, and it's quite a celebration today, quite a celebration. For me, it's just a matter of pride and a matter of joy. I'm really happy doing what I do here, and I'm happy to be a part of it as a director, as an executive producer, as one of the actors. I've really come to love my cast and my crew, and we have a new energy on our radar this season with Krista Vernoff returning to the writer's room. Shonda has never been more, emphatic about how much she loves the show, and her input is incredible. Let me say this without being a spoiler, that we have something that Krista calls little Easter egg. It's a little Easter egg hunt for our fans. As they watch the episode, there will be characters, there will be situations that will make them recall something in the past over the last 14 years of Grey's Anatomy. It's a wonderful episode. I'm really thrilled to be directing it. It's a lot of work. I love it, though. It's great. people love the storytelling on Grey's. They love the reality of our show. Our show certainly has, our heightened drama with the medical, challenges and situations that happen. But everything that happens on the show is something that either has happened or could happen. And I think that rings true with so much going on right now that's a lot of fiction and wonderful. It's fun. I like fiction too. I like fantasy. But it's nice to sit in your living room and feel like you know people. That's what makes a television show great, that you want to invite these people into your living room. And we have a whole generation of young people that are binge watching and just discovering Grey's Anatomy. I know because every time I went to a bat mitzvah and I was the star of the party, and it was like, what? Dr. Avery, is your son coming? They love my son Jesse on the show. He's so great. We're living in Shondaland, and that is I wouldn't even say a mandate. It is a way of life for Shonda Rhimes, that there is diversity, there's inclusion, facing difficult subjects. I think that Grey's Anatomy represents America almost better than any show that I've ever seen. You see all kinds of people in charge, you see all kinds of people in trouble. It's amazing. I will never forget the year that Shonda and Betsy won the Diversity Award. The most remarkable thing about her acceptance speech was she didn't know why this award existed when she was getting an award for doing just what she should be doing. That's great.
It's simply incredible. It's a piece of television history now. It's, not many shows make it to 300. And I got a 7-year break. Yeah, I was here for the first 7 seasons, and I just came back this year, and it's really a thrill to be here for the 300th. I just feel, I don't think I even really understood until today what a big deal it is. We all felt so emotionally overwhelmed when we cut the cake, and the network and the studio came to celebrate, and it's just, it's a privilege. The 300th episode I wrote as sort of a love letter to the early years of a show. It's very nostalgic. I found a way to revisit all the ghosts of our past. The theme of the episode is the ghosts of our past, and I found a way to help, I think, the fans feel the presence in some way or another of the characters we've lost. And also, I created something of an Easter egg hunt for fans who've been watching for all 14 seasons, just little references and things that we haven't seen for a while, actors we haven't seen for a while. And yeah, so it's a nostalgic, it's a love letter to the fans. It's a love letter to the fans of the early years of the show. We were a great big hit out of the gate, and that was a wild ride. I had never been on a show. There are so few shows that take off like a bullet train the way Grey's Anatomy did, and it was really incredible to be here in the center of that storm at the beginning. And now there's a new storm, because when the show hit Netflix, a whole new generation of fans started watching, and my boyfriend has a son who's 12, and he's watching the show, and all of his friends are watching the show. And it's just incredible that people who were not yet born when we started making this are new fans of the early seasons and binge watching 14 years. And I don't know if I'll ever be a part of something that's bigger than this. We feel like we have an incredible platform here to have a voice in the world, and I feel like I have an opportunity to give some relief, some comic relief to the people who are out fighting on a lot of different fronts right now. I have a friend who did 5 tours in Afghanistan, and he came back and he became a comedian. And he said that he did that because it was the comedians, it was the comedy movies that kept him sane and kept him, he believes, alive through that work that he was doing. He needed the relief. People need to laugh. And things have become, it feels pretty dark in the world, in politics and in the news. And I came into this season with a desire to bring to bring back the light and the joy and the fun and the funny of the early years that had faded a little bit in recent years since McDreamy died and there was a lot of grieving. I wanted to come back and bring the joy and the fun back, the funny back, because I think people need to laugh. They need to laugh so that they can get up every morning and keep doing the things they need to do to affect the world in a positive way. So that's what keeps me going. It's my activism to give people a chance to laugh. I wrote an episode about the death of my father called 6 Days, Parts 1 and 2. And I got thousands of emails from fans thanking me for putting my story and my dad's story on the show, and giving voice to these feelings that are indescribable when you lose a parent. And that was really meaningful for me.